so I haven't done it. I think it was virtual the past 2 years. I don't remember doing it.
I think this is the first one.
Yeah. Certainly the activation in New York was not as big as this.
Yeah. Did you come to Bitcoin Miami?
I did. I actually was there for a conference, for exchange and ETF conference. Oh, you can tell the secret.
Oh, okay. Is this, should I put this away or no? We're good?
You can't see it because you're
okay.
facing outside. Welcome. We have Lule Demmissie. She is the US CEO at eToro. We're going to talk about scaling a crypto business in today's environment. Lule, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me.
It's certainly great to be back on the ground in Austin
Indeed.
for Consensus. And the pandemic certainly fueled a surge of investors in the cryptoverse, and it's one of the more diverse owned asset classes. Tell us more about that.
So it's interesting, I often talk about crypto is the most diversely owned asset class in the history of asset class ownership, which is a really huge statement to make. And I think part of it is a few things. One, DeFi solves for things that traditional finance doesn't, and people who are typically not in the sort of the norm of who owns asset classes need to have norms busted for them to be able to have access, right? So that's one. And the second is, I think, just the ease of access, right? The ease of access, whether it's with user experience or cost or minimum investing, that's just invited more people that don't look the same into ownership of digital assets.
What is the key to maintaining retail investor engagement?
I mean, I think it's several things, but it's often things that we often forget about. So one is just keep it simple, stupid. I think there's a lot of companies that get so excited as my background is in product, and it's really easy to get caught up in designing some really funkadelic things, and then you realize, wow, we left the simplicity of use. So I think that is like a tenet that you can't break. And the second, I think, is making sure that you are always looking at it through the eyes of somebody who needs context. You can't just assume that just because you put something there, that they don't need the context of the why behind it. So always remembering, like, as you design products and services, to understand, you have to answer the why to the user experience. And then lastly, I think it's stuff that's actually solving their problems, right? Solving real life issues, that whether it's because they want to own something or they want to solve something in other ways financially, that it actually has utility in their lives.
Right. And survey after survey conducted at eToro shows that consumers want confidence in the product and the platform. How do you build that confidence at eToro?
Several ways. So one is the way that the product is designed is that you can come in to just do virtual investing, follow stocks or follow coins. You don't have to have sort of immediate engagement in investing. That's because that's a higher bar for somebody from a risk appetite or a fear factor, right? So that's one way we do it, is making sure that the design is about learning by doing before you have to put skin in the game. The other way to do it is to make sure that people don't feel alone, right? So there's several ways you can do that. Some companies do it through having a lot of advisors, for example, right? And I think the world has changed so much right now that communities are things that people are really trusting nowadays. And so the eToro platform is designed to have social investing, and the social feed is a part of the experience. So anytime you can see what other platform users and investors are thinking about a particular thesis, and that makes you feel a little less alone in the way that you think through it. And it's regular people, right? It's not like some PhD someone on an ivory tower.
Right. It's interesting that you say that, because with the newer technologies and what we're looking at here at Consensus, that's one thing I picked up on, is the social component is so crucial on all of the platforms, whether it's investing, whether it's gaming or otherwise. That social component is so key. Do you see further innovation and adoption in this space?
Absolutely, in many ways, whether it's digital assets themselves, and one could argue some of the engineering within a digital asset is a social component, like DAOs, right? So I think that social is something that has been untapped in every industry. You take LinkedIn, about finding a job. You take Twitter, about being informed about different things. So I feel like the social element of things has become part of our DNA there is nothing to believe that it wouldn't necessarily become further part of our DNA when it comes to our financial discourse, right? And so I do think it will be stronger. I think there's two ways to think of it. There's one way, which is a cynical way of thinking, oh, that's just the, the crowd, and what if, the crowd, what does the crowd know? And so, the other way is to understand that you're really tapping into the hive mind, right? If you're a discerning consumer, you're getting access to voices and perspectives that before didn't have the ability to have that transparency of access in platforms. So we look at it through that lens. Of course, we want to make sure that people can trust, as you said, the voice that is in there, but ultimately, the wisdom of the crowd is not necessarily one that we should be cynical about.
And you brought up a great point earlier in the conversation that sometimes we get so product driven, focused on the product, but what is so unique with fintech, it really has ushered in a generation where, users have more voice. It's more about how can we help the user, not here's a product, these are your choices, but it's really the consumer driving choice, and it's a big reversal in the way companies are thinking also.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think whatever form of innovation you look at, the world has been disintermediated. It's not the engineer alone in the background, right? It is users and individuals, whether it's through the wisdom of their voice that they do in social, right, that they're influencing it, or because companies are inviting that voice in, right? And I think that's wonderful because what it does is it makes you produce relevant stuff.
Right.
Not just cool stuff, but relevant stuff. That back to my thesis of that's solving a problem.
Right. It almost reminds me of the word utility.
Yes.
There is purpose in the platforms that we're seeing. All right, well, I appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.